This that Benji Talk. This that Benji Talk. This that keep it 100. This that Benji Talk. This that Benji Talk. This that Benji Talk. They call me Mr. 100. This that Benji Talk. You know I keep it 100 like Ben Frank. You know I keep it 100 like Ben Frank. You know I keep it 100 like Ben Frank. This that Benji Talk. This that Benji Talk.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's your boy Mufti, and today this is another episode of the Benji Talk Podcast, and I got a special guest, man. You understand me? And this dude right here, man, is someone that's special to me. You know what I'm saying? It's my main man. It's my pops, man. You understand me? Calvin.
Watch out now.
Now it's my pops, man. Lamont, aka Mufti. You know what I'm saying? That's where I got my name from, man. Go on and talk to him, pops.
Yes, sir. I mean, I couldn't say it no better. It's a legacy.
No, for sure, for sure. How you feeling, pops? How you feeling?
I'm well, son. What about you?
I'm blessed beyond belief, man. No complaints over here, man. You know what I'm saying? It's been a long time coming, man. You know, we talked about being on my podcast when you was still locked down. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So we here, man. And not only am I excited for this episode of this podcast, and you know what I'm saying, to dig deep in my pops. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that heard about you. It's a lot of people that know about you. And there's a lot of people that's been wondering about you. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, you know, you my main man. So I've always bigged you up. I've always, you know, spoke highly of my dad. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's a blessing to be able to have you on this podcast episode with me. You know what I'm saying? On the Benji Talk Podcast. So we're going to get right to it, man. I got some questions, you know what I mean? The first question, you know what I'm saying, that, I mean, I kind of know, you know what I'm saying? I know already, but the world don't know. The first question is, can you share some memories of your childhood and your upbringing? What was your upbringing like?
My upbringing was strict. My mom was determined to try to prevent me from following after my father's footsteps. My father was heavily involved in the streets. And my mom was trying to make it where I didn't end up in some of the places that he ended up based on some of the poor decisions that he made. I came up in an era of time where black unity was still prevalent and prominent. So I was conscious of who I was culture-wise. You know, every black person was a brother or a sister, and we meant that. We greeted each other in that way, and we treated each other in that way, despite the fact that there was still black-on-black crime at that time. But growing up in that era was beneficial just because, you know, black unity or unity in itself was taught.
Yes,
and self-love was, you know, kind of enforced and taught. And then, you know, just being, you know, a fighter, you know, being resourceful, being disciplined and having accountability and responsible, and all those things were taught. So all those things were instilled in me. But because I came from a strict household, I used to have to, you know, I don't really call it running away from home, because I would, you know, basically do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, anytime an event was taking place in the hood where everybody and their mama had to be there, I couldn't be the one person that wasn't there.
No, for sure.
You know, so basically, because I had, you know, curfews and I had rules that I had to abide by in order for me to be in those places that everybody and their mama, you know, needed to be at in order to be known.
Yeah.
I just simply wouldn't go home.
Right.
And, you know, because I made a conscious decision to disobey my mom, you know, and, you know, when my dad was there, you know, disobey my dad, I just stayed out, you know, and away for as long as I could, because I was going to get whooping anyway. You know what I'm talking about? I was going to be on punishment anyway, so I might as well, you know, make the experience worth it. Right. And then, you know, obviously that level of disobedience, you know, led to me continuing to make poor choices, which is committing crimes and things like that. And then that is what led to incarceration, at a very early age. The first time I got sent upstate was 14. Okay. 14. And in Minnesota, they hit you with a lot of paper. You don't necessarily get a lot of time the first time you get incarcerated, but they give you a lot of parole or probation. So they kind of make it where they have some say-so in your life. Right. The moment you show society that you're not responsible or mature enough to make healthy, good decisions for yourself.
What was the first crime that you committed that had you?
Burglary. Okay. Burglary. Am I pronouncing it right? Burglary.
Yeah, burglary. That's
what's crazy is I didn't steal anything. A group of friends, me and my friends, if you want to call it that, were coming back from a lake. Mm-hmm. We saw a door open. Back then in Minnesota, in the suburban areas, people used to keep their doors and the garages open. Okay. And we were roguish. That's what people called thugs back in the days. We were roguish, and we were adventurous, and we went in and we started seeing valuable things, and we started taking what we wanted to take. Okay. And obviously that was wrong. We got caught for our crimes, and, me and a couple other people, we ended up doing time. I ended up doing 6 months for that. And I don't remember how much probation, that's the paper that I was talking about earlier. I don't remember how much probation I got, but the 6-month sentence, because it was unbearable, because before that time I had never did any long time before. I escaped a couple of times, and the second time I escaped, that led to me being sent to a juvenile facility that's kind of the last of the line. Right. For people in Minnesota. And once I got there, I think I don't remember the time frame, but I did 8 to 10 months there. Yeah. So I ended up turning a 6-month sentence into 16, 17 months. And because I got sent to that place that was kind of the last of the line, I ended up getting what they call juvenile parole.
What's juvenile parole for the ones that don't know?
So juvenile parole, because the juvenile facility that I was in, it was half juvenile and half adult minimum. Okay. So you get paroled, right? So I had an adult prison number at the age of 15. Okay. So when I got out from that, by this time I'm so heavily entrenched in just criminal activity, gang activity, and just being disobedient to God and to my mom, that anytime my mom or just society itself tried to impose anything on me, I was rebellious towards it. I did what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, and I felt that I was strong enough to deal with whatever repercussions came with my actions. So I was in and out of the system since the age of 14. And
what do you feel developed that type of attitude?
So as a Christian, I understand that it's a spiritual war. Right. And everything that you do, you either serving God or you're serving the devil. Right. Exactly. And what happens is, if you're not aware of the devil's tricks, you end up getting reduced to a level where you no longer care. Right. Where you're just always pursuing instant gratification. Right. And a lot of that, just like with the food, it's unhealthy. Right? And the same way your body gets addicted to junk food, and even though you can read labels or people can tell you that it's unhealthy,
still eat it.
You still eat it because you're now addicted to it. Yeah. And it's so accessible to you. Exactly. So that's how it was, when it came to being disobedient and doing what I wanted to do. It's,
But why were you so disobedient? My question is that because you said that, your mom was a Christian, you know what I'm saying? She was strict. So how did it get to the point where you wanted to just do what you wanted to do? Was it because she was so strict? Was it because you was introduced to certain things that you thought was cool at the time?
Well, I was exposed to things before my mom became a Christian.
Okay.
I was, just because I don't want to put other people's business out there, I was exposed to a lot of things before, some of my family members became, God-fearing Christians.
Okay.
And just living in certain neighborhoods, you're exposed to certain things.
Right.
And I was and still am one of those people that always wanted to be somebody, right. And how the devil works and how society works, they make it seem like in order to be somebody, you have to do it a certain way.
Right.
So because, I was misled, I attempted to do it the wrong way better than everybody else. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, so.
It makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you come from? Like, are you from Minnesota?
No, I was originally born in Kansas City, Missouri, the Show Me State, for those of you that don't know. But my formative years were in Minneapolis, Minnesota, both over South and over North, but I'm predominantly a South Sider. That's what I'm most familiar with, and that's where I'm comfortable at. But I've been exposed to a lot of different people from a lot of different areas because I was heavily entrenched in gang activities and just the streets in general.
Okay. So when did you get into gang activity? Like, when did you join an organization? Or how? Like, explain how that happens or how that works for the ones that don't know. I don't come from a street background. Like, how did you get involved with the organization you got in, and why did you choose that organization over many other organizations?
Well, I believe that I was born, to be affiliated with the organization that I became affiliated with. But, officially it became at the age of 12.
Okay.
How the organization was presented, how the members in that era of time carried and conducted themselves. Okay. It just appealed to me. There were other gangs that, existed, but I knew that it wasn't for me.
Okay.
But the organization that I became affiliated with, and I'm still affiliated, I'm just no longer actively involved in any criminal or gang activity. But if you are legitimately a member of anything, you're always going to be, a part and parcel of that. It's just a matter of, are you active or are you inactive? It's just like if you were in the military, you're always going to be known as, a person that was affiliated with the military. It's just, are you active or inactive? It's the same rules apply.
Okay.
Or, I guess in the military, they would say, if you're, on duty or not.
Okay. Sure.
So, yeah, it's not like I grew up wanting to be in a gang or anything like that. It wasn't even considered or called that. I grew up in an era of time where it was organized nations.
Okay.
And how it was presented was nationalism. And just being a young brother in the streets, just seeing, the political and organizational structure, seeing how these brothers and in some cases sisters carried and conducted themselves, seeing how they was respected, seeing how education was taken very seriously. These are all things that were taught in my household, but it was coming from a different standpoint. The organization that I was affiliated with was fundamentally Islamic. So growing up in a household, where the belief system was Christianity, where the community, belief system was mostly Christianity, in that era of time, it wasn't really that appealing.
Right.
to me and some of the other brothers,
Right.
you know. But the way Islam, was presented, it felt right,
Okay.
So to be associated with the organization that were governed by Islamic / national, politics and a national Islamic agenda, it felt empowering, if that makes sense.
What are some challenges you faced growing up, and how did it shape you into who you are today?
I think the primary challenge that I was faced with, or that shaped me, was being dark complected in an era of time where that wasn't considered appealing. My defense mechanism was to become defensive, to fight. So, like I said before, I attempted to be the best of of the people that were doing things the wrong way. So I became malicious and vicious, and that is what prevented people from talking about me.
Right.
Capping on me. That's what we called it back in the days, trying to ridicule me or trying to challenge me. And I had to become even more vicious because I was an only child. So I never had anybody that I can go home and get. So I used weapons. I fought, dirty, as they called it. And, I was fearless and, courageous and things like that. And when I saw that people either loved me or feared me or were intimidated or respected me because of the fearlessness and the craziness that I was displaying, I just that became more and more of my personality.
Okay.
So I think being dark complected is the main thing that shaped me. And then obviously, if you want to look at it from a deeper standpoint, there were a lot of political, social, and economical conditions going on in society, particularly in our community, that led to, me and probably a lot of other people who were dark complected or overweight or, whatever thing or condition that somebody had that wasn't socially accepted at that time. A lot of us had to use violence. Some people use drugs and alcohol as a coping mechanism.
Right.
I chose to be defensive.
Right.
Be defensive, I should say.
How did your early environment and experiences influence your choices and actions as a young adult?
They influenced all of them. I am a product of my environment.
Okay.
Again, because I'm a man of God, everything begins and ends with God, So during the earlier stages of my life, it was all about disobedience. It was all about, trying to find myself and, just running from God without even knowing that I was running from God.
Right.
And
why
just,
were you running from God? If you didn't understand then, I know you can understand now, right?
Well, listen, when God was introduced into my life through other people, the way that it was presented, didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, because God's ways are not our ways and God's thoughts are not our thoughts, I didn't understand. My thing was, if there's really a God, then why is he allowing my people to live under these conditions?
Right.
Why do good people die, and do people that, do a lot of harm to a lot of people get to live in sometimes successful, ways?
Right.
I couldn't understand things like that, right? So, and then, I've always had an authority problem. So anything that was presented, that prohibited me, that confined
what's the difference between now and then? Like your understanding with being a Christian and God and stuff like that.
So God has a way of arranging or allowing circumstances to happen where the only way you can get any type of relief or restoration is through God.
For sure.
So I tried every remedy that I can possibly try to get myself out of the situation I was in. I was serving a life sentence in prison.
Right.
You know, I was doing multiple years in the hole. You know, for those of y'all that don't know what the hole is segregation. I was doing multiple years in the hole. I was just doing a lot of things, you know, in an attempt to be somebody special. And it got to the point where, you know, I couldn't see no future in continuing to live that life.
Right.
And, you know, deep down inside, I knew it wasn't right. Because, again, I did have proper upbringing. But because of my authority problem and because of my relentlessness in attempting to find other solutions other than God, it just took me a little bit longer to catch on than other people. But doing all that time in prison and watching life and people, you know, pass me by, I was just unhappy. And then, you know, I kind of leaned on some of the things, you know, that loved ones and other people, you know, that God was placing in my life. You know, I was crying out to God, you know, and he was answering. I just saw how things were gradually changing. Yeah. And the more, you know, I submitted myself to him, and the more, you know, I distanced myself from a lot of the negativity, including gang activity, you know, thinking and acting like a criminal and things like that, the more I distanced myself from all of that and leaned more into God, you know, the more paths just started opening up for me. And even to this day, you know, I don't really, I'm not overwhelmed by anything. Right. Because our pastor at our church, which is Worldwide Outreach for Christ on 38th in Chicago, he always says that, you know, when you look back on your resume, you will see all the different instances where God, you know, has showed you grace. Right. And that's what I do anytime I run into an unexpected obstacle. Okay. Anytime I run into any type of difficulty, you know, I say, well, listen, God has already delivered me from this, and this. Right. So, you know, these little things or people that's frustrating me now are nothing compared to all the different things that God has already delivered me from. So when you have that type of background, you know, it's just, and when you have God in your life and you're aware that God is in your life, things just become so much easier. Right. Trust and believe, you know, things are extremely more difficult when you're going against the grain. Right. But if you're living according to God's purpose for you, your blessings are effortlessly.
Okay. So you mentioned prison. What did you do to put yourself in prison or to get yourself in prison?
I took somebody's life by way of gunfire. Regrettably. So just, you know, a part of my testimony, and you know this, so my youngest son was literally born on the same night that I regrettably took somebody else's life, which led me to go to prison. And then 28 years later, the same son that was born on the same night that I took somebody else's life, that son's life was taken by way of gunfire. So, that is something that I have to continuously think about. You know, even when, you know, I'm extremely happy with what God has blessed me with and what God is doing in my life, and I have repented for my sins. But in the back of my mind, I know that I owe God.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that I'm partly responsible for my son losing his life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. How many years you served a life sentence? That's what you said, but a lot of people don't know what a life sentence is, because when a lot of times when people hear life, you know, they don't think that you get a chance at life again or be able to come outside. So how many years did you serve total?
I served 32 and a half years. So let me explain. In Minnesota, when I caught my case, the life sentence was you had to do a mandatory 30 years before you became eligible for parole. They now have life without parole, and then they have life with parole. So through the grace of God, you know, I caught my case at a time where parole was still a possibility. That's number one.
Okay.
And then number two, through the grace of God, you know, I didn't get the type of sentence, even though it was a long sentence. I didn't get the type of sentence, you know, that would have led to me spending the rest of my life in prison, even though I could have. I did get that type of sentence,
Right.
but through the grace of God, I was released after 32 and a half years. And I know it was the grace of God because, I was a thorn in the system side. I didn't kiss no butt. And I was standing on business 10 toes down. And, you know, I did change for the better. But because I was still in the prison environment, you know, I still had to care and conduct myself a certain way.
Right.
You know, and then obviously, you know, with me being who I was, the system, you know, was not comfortable with letting me out, you know, but I personally think that they didn't have no choice because I think that it was God's will. And if something is God's will, nothing or no one can interfere with that. And I know that it was God's will because if you know me, those of you that know me and those of you that were incarcerated with me, you know that I didn't compromise or negotiate, you know, with a lot of different things. I stood on business. I was who I was. You know, so it's only through the grace of God that I'm sitting here with my son, able to do this podcast.
No, for sure. So you said like in prison you were a certain way, and you didn't compromise. But do you still have that same way of thinking and attitude now that you're out and in the world and living life now?
No, sir. You cannot be a man of God and not do things how God wants you to do it. So my only loyalty and faithfulness is to God. Okay. So, you know, every day, you know, that God blesses me, you know, to live, I try to live the best life that I can live according to his grace and mercy and what his decree is. You know, so no, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't compromise when it comes to God. I don't negotiate when it comes to God. It's God's way or no way.
Right.
You know, whereas before it was, you know, I was standing on nation business. I was being a convict, you know, all the negative things. You know, now my decree is to be the best man of God I can be, you know, the best husband I can be, the best father, grandfather, you know, and so forth and so on. So no, I don't compromise when it comes to those things, but, you know, I do everything according to scriptures to the best of my ability.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so I got another question. And I just want to let you know these questions are questions that the people want to know. I had posted a status on social media, and then they just flooded me, so I just picked the ones that I thought would be, you know what I'm saying, dope. So this next question is, what was the initial adjustment like when you first entered prison, and how did you cope with the transition?
Well, I came up in an era of time where even before you even go to prison, you know, they always tell you, you know, if you get locked up, you whoop the first person that looks at you wrong, or you whoop, you know, the biggest, baddest person, and then that's how you make everybody else, kind of respect you and know that you have arrived. And that was the pattern that I followed. So by the time I made it to prison, I had already been in and out of the system. I had already,
developed a reputation already.
Yeah, I had already made a name for myself. I was in and out of the juvenile system. Yeah. So, and then, like I said, I was fearless and I could fight really good because, again, I wasn't, I thought I was ugly because I was dark skinned, because the only thing that, females seemed to be attracted to at that time were light skinned people and whatnot. So, I was just a black ornery, skinny dude that can fight real good that you better not say nothing to. And I went to the penitentiary with that same mentality.
For sure. Okay. It said, how did you manage to stay strong-minded and focused throughout your time in prison? Because you got to understand, you said you did a life sentence, 32 and a half years, man. So how were you able to do that?
God.
Okay.
That's the only, I was literally talking to my pastor earlier today about that. So I didn't know it at the time that it was God. I was just being me. Right. I didn't know, to this day, I don't know no other way other than to be me. So I'm not weak. Sure. I don't know how to be weak, giving up or anything like that has never been a part of my DNA. I've always been a fighter. I come from a family of fighters. I come from a family of people with strong personalities. I've always had a strong personality. You cannot just tell me anything. You cannot just do anything to me. Right. You're going to have to kill me, So, and my whole thing is I go into every fight, expecting to win, right? And then I will make, whatever improvisation I need to make, right. In the meantime and in between time. If I have to improvise, you might be in a little bit of trouble. Nah, real talk. So I was not, obviously there was anxiety there, because anytime you go into an environment that you don't know nothing about, you will be ignorant, not to be anxious, not right. to, have questions, not to, I won't say doubt yourself, but you need to like arrive and go through it, to know that you're capable of going through it. Right. So some things I didn't know if I was strong enough to overcome and persevere until I went through it. Right. Right. But I didn't go to prison being scared or intimidated or anything like that. Just like, this is the second time I've done a podcast. Yeah. I don't have experience doing podcasts, but I have 54 years of experience being me, so I'm not intimidated. Exactly. This type of interaction could be intimidating to a lot of people, but not to me. Yeah. I don't care if you like me, period, point blank.
Okay. So when you went in there, did you have some type of guidance or like a OG or old school person that kind of schooled you going in, or you kind of went in there and just
no sir
learned on your own?
I learned everything through trial and error.
Okay.
Pastor Curtis Farrar is literally the first mentor I've ever had in my life that I've ever even accepted. Everything else I learned through trial and error. If you want to, if I had any other mentor other than the pastor, it would be my mom. If you're talking about a male mentor, it'd be Pastor Curtis Farrar.
Okay.
Right. Everything else I learned through trial and error. Everybody thought that I was older than what I really was. And I just, I won't even say that I faked it till I made it, because I was really that person. Right. But it was just a certain side of me. I never got a chance to tap into this side of me.
Right, exactly.
So, but again, I was born to fight. I was born to challenge things. I was born, to not give up and things like that. So it's not like I tap into anything. It's just what, God has given me,
Yeah. Okay. Can you describe some pivotal moments or experiences in prison that contribute to your personal growth?
So I got kicked out of the state of Minnesota. Okay. There's a couple different things.
Why?
Because I was a gang leader. I was so influential that I had more influence of the people that was affiliated with me than the prison officials had, and they didn't like that.
Okay.
You know, and then I was, you know, their words, I was recruiting people, and I was placing hits on people, and the hits were being carried out, you know, I forgot the terminology they used, but basically to build my gang and all that type of stuff, right?
Okay. Was those assumptions or?
No, it was accurate. It's just again, I've always been one of those people who had a strong desire to be somebody. Right. So I grew up hearing about gang chiefs and all the different power and influence that they had, and you know, that's all I really knew. Okay. You know, so like the people that I hung around with and all that, you know, they glorify, you know, these other men's status. Right. So I was and am the type of person that I can only play second fiddle long enough to be, you know what I'm saying, the man. So you know, I have no issue with following, but my goal and my nature is to follow long enough to lead, not to be subservient to somebody, you know, for my entire life. So, yeah. But as far as pivotal experiences in prison, I mean, there's a few. You know, the first time I did a year in the hole,
that contribute to your personal growth.
All of it. It's so I was a fool, right? And like I said, I exhausted all my remedies in that ignorance. Right. So every time I experienced something new in prison, you know, what it did is it led to me, you know, having to regroup and take a look at, you know, what I was doing and, you know, the predicament that my actions had me in. Okay. And then I would make subtle changes, but I was attempting to do things without God. Right. And that's why the changes didn't have any real significant change. Right. You know what I mean? It didn't lead to growth and development. It didn't lead to an improvement in my life. Right. You draw what I'm saying? Uh-huh. So it's the most pivotal thing in my life was giving my life to God.
And what year was that when you just had that mind shift that like, man, I'm finna surrender?
About 35, but it still was a gradual surrender. Right. It was a gradual. It wasn't, you know, now I'm all in. You know, initially it was a gradual surrender because first and foremost, God knows what he's doing. Right. And I know people say that God doesn't have to prove anything to anybody because God was, is, and nevermore will be. All that's true. But God knows who you are before you even created. Right. So for me, you know, God had to reveal himself to me. Right. And I just had moments and experiences and encounters with God where I know for a fact it was God. Right. And when you have those type of experiences, it just shapes and molds you. Like once you know, you can never go back to acting like you don't know. You can, right, but you will be foolish for doing it.
Right, exactly.
You know, so that is, if you're talking about authentic change, it was giving my life to God. Everything else was just strategic adjustments.
Right. Okay. All right. So how did you maintain hope and motivation while facing such a long sentence?
I didn't. Listen, you and I...
You think that's why you did like hard time? You know what I'm saying?
Look, son, you and I had these conversations while I was actually going through it.
Right. But the people don't know. I know.
My thing is, a lot of people talk a lot of stuff, right? Yeah. But the reality is you never know what type of cloth you cut from until you experience things.
Right.
I told my son, I don't know how long ago, listen, I already know that I'm strong enough to die in prison.
Right.
I just don't want to.
Exactly.
Right?
Sure.
I knew, while I was going through it, while I was in the trenches, I could do this.
Right.
This is not strong enough to break me.
Right.
Right? You know what I'm saying? I wasn't one of them people taking medication and all that type of stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was waking up optimistic about life. I was waking up peaceful, stable, in mind, body, and soul, and all that, right? Yep. You know what I'm saying? My desire to be free was because of you, my youngest son, Mama Mona, my mama. People believed in me.
Right.
People needed me. People loved me, and that I loved.
For sure.
Right? That was my motivation.
Yeah.
But the type of cloth that I was cut from, I could have did it the other way too. Because I wasn't in prison crying about prison.
Right.
Because, I grew up in the era of time where everybody and their mama told me, right? First of all, they say when you black, you got one foot in the grave and the other in the penitentiary. Right. That's the era of time I grew up in.
For sure, yeah.
Right? But then everybody and their mama told me, they even had shows like Beretta, don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was certain things that I knew.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And I was heavily invested in that lifestyle because I thought that I wanted to be like them gang chiefs, right. And the pimps and the max, anybody that had the type of reputation that people loved, respected, and feared. I wanted to be like those men because I didn't have a positive, male presence in my life.
For sure,
so all I knew is about the people that I heard about.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And even in the movies, the brothers, I didn't grow up wanting to be like a white dude.
For sure.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the brothers, in the movies, just think about, the black people's movies, the Shafts, the Max, the Superflies, right? We grew up watching these type of movies. These are the people that are respected. They running around, they kicking butt, they making money, they got all the pretty girls. That's what I wanted.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I wanted,
Okay. Yeah. All right, so what strategies or routines did you develop to stay mentally and emotionally resilient?
I didn't have a strategy. I was literally just being me. I don't know no other way to do it.
Okay.
If you're weak-minded or if you have a weak nature, you have to read a book about it. You have to study something. You have to have a strategy. I woke up strong.
For sure. Yeah.
Right? I woke up strong. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to motivate myself to be strong.
Right.
I didn't have to read a book about being strong.
No, for sure.
I woke up strong.
Yeah. So what things did you so when you did a lot of time, man. So what routines did you have daily? Did you work out? Did you read? How did you spend your time in prison? Because I understand a lot of people that get locked up, the ones that smart stay out of trouble, they have a routine. They go to work, they go to school, they work out. What was yours? Take me through a day of Calvin or Lamont or Mufti. Take me through your day.
It depends on
if you had a camera crew that came and just showed how you was living in prison. Were you dirty? Did you have a dirty cell? You know what I'm saying? Did you have
That's crazy.
Did you have a roomie, a bunkie? You know what I'm saying? How was it? You know what I'm saying? For the most of your time being there. What did you do? How did you spend your days?
It's different phases. When I first went in, I went in at 18, came out at 51. So first, let me say that.
Damn.
As a teenager and all of my 20s, it was, you just can't stand being in the cell.
Right.
You got to be out. You kicking it. I played ball. I was good at basketball. I played ping pong. I boxed because we had boxing in the Minnesota system. I played dominoes, spades.
Okay.
All those different things. I rapped.
Okay.
All those different things.
Well, those things that you developed then, or you did those things out in the house before it?
All of the above.
Okay.
You know, all of the above. You know, so the thing about prison, you know, is everybody that you don't see on the block is locked up.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you get there, you know, you see a bunch of people that you know.
Okay.
And then the first thing you have to do, and you don't even know that you're doing this, you know, because I didn't even know that I was doing it. The first thing that you do, you know, is you start looking for distractions. Because if you know you got to be somewhere that you don't want to be, you know, for 5, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years or whatnot, you need something to distract you from that pain. You know, you need something to distract you from that level of helplessness,
so what was
that
your
level of vulnerability. Everything that I said.
Okay.
You know, I immediately got heavily entrenched in gang activity, you know.
Even more so than being out on the outside?
Well, yeah, because I had to build my gang in prison. It's not that it didn't exist, it just wasn't prominent, right? So what I had to do is I had to help build the brand, you know, and I'm gonna say help build the brand because obviously, you know, other people played a significant role in that, right?
For sure.
So that became my priority. That became my focus. And what happens is when you connect yourself to other people, you know, everything that's going on in their life is also going on in yours. So their problems become your problems, right? Their activities become your activities. And, you know, because you have all those different things going on, it's enough of a distraction to kind of desensitize you. Now you're not thinking about, man, I'm gonna have to spend the rest of my life in here. Man, you know what I'm saying? My baby mom left me.
Right,
man, you know what I'm saying? Such as my dad died or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
while you in prison, if you know, you can be doing a year and you might lose a loved one.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So just imagine doing 32 and a half. I lost, you know, my dad, I lost my stepfather, I lost my son, I lost, you know, my grandfather, I lost my auntie, I lost a lot of different people. My mom is literally the last surviving sibling of her and her siblings. You know, I lost other people. I lost so many people that I can't even remember the people that I lost because I had to desensitize myself to the point where I didn't feel anything.
No, for sure.
So when I got the news, it didn't do anything to me.
Right, exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Now, this next question, I kind of feel like you answered it in one of the other questions, but I'm going to ask it anyways. It says, what were the key factors that led you to decide to turn your life around?
Well, like I said before, I don't know if it was a key factor. All I know is that God arranges circumstances to happen or allows circumstances to happen where you have no choice but to come to him for help. And that's what happened to me. It wasn't anything overwhelming or anything like that. It's just I was tired. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had exhausted my remedies, tried everything that I possibly could try to live the type of life that I wanted to live. Right. None of it was working. You know? And that's how I learned that you can do anything. You can't do anything without God. It's not sustainable unless, you know, you have God in your life.
For sure. I agree. Let's see. How did you approach yourself improvement in personal development while in prison? I feel like you answered that already.
How did I do what?
It says, how did you approach self-improvement and personal development while in prison?
Discipline, consistency. You know, I've always been studious, and just faith.
Okay. You know? Yes, sir. What role did education, therapy, or spiritual practices play in your transformation?
Well, education is kind of what helped me as far as, you know, being able to put things on my resume and things like that. And, you know, that's partially why I ended up being able to get different jobs.
Yeah, we're going to get into that too.
Yeah. But Yeah, I know, people usually say a bunch of spectacular stuff, when it comes to this type of stuff, but the reality is everything is God.
Oh, for sure,
Like, listen, the thing is, when I look back, and even now, when I look at things, I can't really take any credit for it.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean? Because again, I wasn't going to church in prison or anything like that, because church in prison, at least in the Minnesota system, you have things taking place that, people like me disagree with.
Right, for sure.
I don't want to put it out there and whatnot, but
Right.
I didn't always, like some of the people that were going to church. I didn't like some of the activities that they were involved in.
Right.
A lot of people were, and obviously I look at it differently, now, but a lot of people were using the church as a refuge.
Right.
But not in a good way.
No, for sure.
It's not like they were going to church to change their life and, and things like that. They were going to engage in illicit activities.
Right, for sure.
They were going to so they can kind of duck prison responsibilities and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be associated or connected with, those type of people.
Right, for sure.
And as far as like studying things, I studied a lot of different things. I've read all the books that a lot of people read. I read 48 Laws of Power. I read the ISIS papers. I can't think of them all right now, but you name it, I probably read it.
Nah, for sure. You got a lot of time, 32 and a half years. I'm sure you done read hundreds, if not thousands of books.
For sure. So I don't really know, what shaped me. I was so I guess to describe it, so first and foremost, earlier I was mentioning gang activity. I was a Stone. I was a Mo. So just being affiliated or associated with something like that, you have to be studied. You have to be studious. So I've studied a lot of different things. I was and am well versed in the science. I can tell you a lot of different things about history, a lot of different things about politics, right. And things like that. So that shaped me. Having that type of background. Having those type of conversations continuously, because I was a leader, so I had to know things verbatim, right. In order to be able to teach other people those things and enforce it on other people. Having the Christian background, and coming from the strict household that I did, that put me, that shaped me, and that helped play a role in my, my change and my growth and my presentation to the world. Yeah, it's not one, it's not one thing. I can't say, well, this one thing, this one book, or this one person, So all I can do is just give the credit to God.
Okay, for sure.
All right, so I'm gonna skip some of these questions. This is a dope question. It says, how do you fight temptation and stay committed to the new path in life that you're on now?
Yeah, it's a fight. I pray about it. I remember, the trials and tribulations I had to go through to get to where I am now. I know what God delivered me from.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know, what what I'm saying, my family and what I have invested in me, and I know what God has entrusted, in me.
No, for sure.
So it's, that's repeat the question. Well, I know I answered it,
it says, but how do you fight temptation and stay committed to the new path in life, to your new path in life?
Yeah, everything that I just said. I mean, and I don't want to lose that. You know what I'm saying? Sure. It's like, look, if you're a parent and you know that your presence, your presence alone is good for your children and your grandchildren, you don't want to sabotage that.
No, for sure.
If you a husband, you know, and you know that your presence, you know, is assisting somebody, you know, and comforting somebody, you don't want to sabotage that. Like,
Sure,
you know,
for sure.
I have, you know, I am a man in every sense of the word, and I have people, you know, that rely on me, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
for a plethora of different reasons, and I love the people that rely on me, you know, and I don't want to disappoint them, you know, but most importantly, you know, I don't want to disrupt or sabotage anything that God has entrusted in me. So how my children look at me, how my grandchildren look at me, how my wife looks at me, how my church family looks at me, the responsibility that each and every one of them gives me, you know, all of those things play a pivotal role, you know, in me being able to resist temptation.
No, for
You
sure.
know, not wanting to disappoint any of those things. And then obviously I fit into that as well. I have a lot invested in me.
No, for sure.
Right. But you know what I'm saying, it's not easy. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, you know, how many people I smack in my mind on a day-to-day basis.
No, for sure.
You know, but I have to do it there so I don't act out on it.
No, for
And
sure.
then being a Christian, I gotta pray for forgiveness because the sin begins with the thought, not the act.
Yeah, that's
You know what I'm
true.
saying? So that's my struggle. You know, I know, you know, I have to struggle with ego and pride. I know I have to, you know, struggle with having an authority problem. I know I have to struggle with trying to resolve things with violence and things like that. I know I have to struggle with, you know, continuing to be patient and whatnot, right? Because when you live in a life of faith, you know, there is no shortcuts.
No, for sure.
You know what I mean? I can't like if I run into a financial problem, there is no going to sell drugs for me. There is no going to rob somebody for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There is no, you know, expecting to find, you know, $100 bill on the street or anything like that. I have to work for it, right? You know what I'm saying? There's certain things that I have to do, and there's certain things that I cannot do as the Christian man, as a father, as a husband. You know what I'm saying? So temptation plays no role in my life other than it being there, but I refuse to succumb to it.
For sure. Okay, so in prison, like, you know, you said you use your influence in you know, growing up and in prison and stuff like that in a negative way, but how did you, were you in prison, like, did you mentor anybody, you know, did any of those people, because you spent a lot of time in prison, so I'm sure you became the big homie, the OG to a lot of people that you may have mentored, you know?
Still am.
Yeah. And do you still keep in contact with them now that you're, you know, free in the world? Do you still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's dope. That's dope. Okay. So, can you share some advice or strategies for others who may be in a similar situation and trying to make positive changes in their life?
Well, I mean, it depends on what the situation is. Like, yeah, it depends on the situation because see, you got people that are fathers.
Yeah.
So the advice that I would give them would be different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You got people that are young and still have their whole life ahead of them.
Yeah.
So the advice that I would give them would be different, right? So I mean, it depends, but the best advice that I can give anybody is to advise them to turn their life to God. And the scriptures say, "Seek ye the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, and everything else will be given to you."
For sure. How big is and how important
sucker free and optimistic, you know. But most importantly, it was through God's grace and good genes.
For sure. Yeah, man, we definitely, again, like I said, we're going to do this in parts because it's so much, man. Like, just going in, because you did time here, and then you did time, you know, in other places, in other cities and states. So
I was in Iowa.
Yeah, for sure. So we gonna get into that, you know, on part 2. We're going to get into a lot of things, and we're going to break a lot of things down, man. It's your boy Mufti, man, and we're going to catch you on the next episode of Benji Talk Podcast. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that post notification bell so you can stay in the loop when we drop these bangers, man. Anything else you want to say before we out? Peace.